want to know, first of all, how did this even come together? I know you guys are friends, and we've talked about stuff, but how did you, come up with the idea, Dad? I think you had the idea first, right?
Yeah, I wanted to do a novel based on the life of Paul, but I've never been accused of being a theologian or a scholar. And so whenever I do a biblically based novel, I like to have somebody alongside that is a theologian and scholar.
So why did you choose?
And I'm going to say because all of your requests were initially declined, you were finally left with no choice but to.
Yeah, James owed me a favor, and I was at the bottom of the barrel. No, I actually heard James preach on Peter at Moody Founders Week a few years ago, and I thought, clearly, if he's got that kind of research and information on Peter, he's done the same on Paul, and he made Peter come alive for me. And so often when we look at characters in the Bible, especially like Peter and Paul, people always refer to them as Saint Peter and Saint Paul, and they're on a pedestal and hard to identify with. And for fiction purposes especially, I'm not trying to go away from Scripture and invent something about a character like this that isn't true just because it's fiction. I want to flesh out things that are suggested in Scripture. So I wanted Paul to become a real person to people and not just a saint who's a statue in somebody's car or somebody that you're just thinking about or revering. And so I said to James, do you have that kind of research on Paul? And of course he did. And so I said, can I pick your brain? Can we spend time together? Can I have access to your sermon research and also have the tapes of your sermons on this subject? And you were going through a series.
Big God, small me.
Right. Well, actually what happened was I've preached on Paul for years, of course, and through many of the Pauline epistles, and have always been a huge fan of Paul. I just think that, after Jesus Christ, who had he was the God-man, but in terms of a human being following Jesus, I just don't think there's a better example of what a Christian looks like than the Apostle Paul. And I've always been inspired by him and blessed by his life and just blown away by his sacrificial commitment to the gospel. And even though it cost him everything, he would say it cost me nothing, and to live as Christ, to die as gain. So when Jerry and I talked, I was just like, you know what? I think I'm going to do a biographical. Mostly we do expositional series, and I'm going to do a biographical series on Paul. We called it Big God, Small Me. And Lori Norris, who's a professor at Moody and a PhD graduate from Wheaton, helped me with the research for the sermon series. I want to give her appropriate credit. And so a lot of the content, when you're preparing, you have pages and pages and pages of content that doesn't make it into the sermon. But that was some of the content that set, the backdrop for Jerry's research into this. And I'm telling you, when I read the book, I was just blown away by his capacity to make the life of the Apostle Paul so gripping, so close, so real. So, wow, I just never felt what he would have been feeling at that moment. And he just, of course, that's Jerry's gift put to good use.